You know, you use it literally every single day, probably without even thinking about it. It's the magic behind your phone's camera, it's what drives your streaming recommendations, and so much more. We're talking about deep learning. And it all kicks off with one simple but really profound question. So, how on earth do you get a machine, at the end of the day, it's just circuits and code, to learn and make decisions in a way that actually mirrors our own intelligence? Well, the answer, it turns out, lies in copying the brain's own blueprint. So let's start with the basics, right? What exactly is this technology that's trying to build, well, an artificial mind? At its very core, deep learning is all about creating something we call an artificial neural network. And here's the key thing to remember. This is not a perfect copy of the brain. It's a super effective mathematical model that's simply inspired by it. Okay, this breaks it down perfectly. Check this out. On the left, you've got a biological neuron. It fires a signal. Pretty straightforward. Now look at the right. Its artificial counterpart is basically a math function. It takes in a signal, but then it does something absolutely crucial. It multiplies that signal by a weight. You can think of that weight kind of like a volume knob. It decides how important that signal is before it chooses whether or not to pass it along. So, if these artificial neurons are the brain cells, how do you actually build them into a brain? Let's take a look at the key building blocks. A network really has three main parts. First, you've got the neurons themselves, those simple math functions we just talked about. Then you have the weights. Those are the volume knobs controlling the strength of every connection. And finally, and this is the big one, you stack these neurons into layers. That stacking is what puts the deep in deep learning. It's the depth of these layers that lets the network learn these incredibly complex, intricate patterns. Theory is great and all, but let's make this real. We are going to use a deep learning model to solve a very important problem, figuring out a penguin species just from its measurements. So here's the challenge. We've got a penguin, and we've measured four things about it. We'll call these its features. Our network's job is to take these four numbers and predict which of the three possible species it belongs to. Simple as that. All right, so how does it work? First, we feed those four measurements right into the input layer. The data then flows through all these hidden layers, and this is where the real magic happens. Each neuron does its little calculation, applies its weight, and passes the result forward. And finally, the output layer takes all that information and spits out a probability score for each of the three species. Whichever one has the highest score wins. That's the prediction. And here's what we get. The network says there's a 20% chance it's an Adelie, only 10% for a chinstrap, but a whopping 70% probability that our penguin is a Gentoo. So the model's prediction is Gentoo. It's a decision based purely on probabilities. But that raises a huge question. How did it learn to get that right? So how did the network figure out the right weights to make that correct prediction? The answer is surprisingly human. It learns by making mistakes and then correcting them over and over and over again. This whole process is called the training loop. You see, when it starts, all the weights are totally random, so its first predictions are just wild guesses. But then it compares its guess to the actual correct answer and measures how wrong it was. That error measurement is called loss. Then, and this is the clever part, it uses a bit of calculus called backpropagation to adjust all of those internal weights just a tiny, tiny bit to make the error smaller next time. You repeat this loop thousands, maybe even millions of times, and the network slowly but surely gets better and better. So this idea of loss is everything. You can really just think of it as a score for failure. A high loss means the prediction was way off. A low loss means it was pretty close. The entire goal of training a deep learning model is to just keep tweaking those weights until this loss value gets as close to zero as humanly or, mechanically possible. Okay, so we've taught a computer to identify penguins. That's neat. But why is this so revolutionary? Let's zoom out a bit and see how this very same process is completely changing our world. The exact same principles, inputs, weights, layers, and minimizing that loss are what power the most advanced AI systems on the planet today. When your phone recognizes your face, that's computer vision. When your smart speaker understands what you're asking, that's natural language processing. It's being used to find patterns in medical scans that doctors might miss, and of course, to help cars drive themselves. It all comes back to this core idea of learning from data. And that really brings us to our final thought. We've built these incredibly complex systems that are designed to learn from error on a massive, massive scale, finding patterns we can never see on our own. It really makes you wonder, if a machine can learn from its mistakes, what will it ultimately teach us about our world and even about ourselves?